this is Annindita and today's video is about the discipline of joy and the three types of joy or happiness. And this video is based upon what I have been learning from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. That's one of the latest books that I have been reading these days. And I'm taking it slow because there are a lot of beautiful concepts in the book. And I'm not trying to read it in a hurry. I'm just reading it like one chapter in a week. I'm reading it really slowly, going back to the same chapters over and over, making notes and things like that. And I'm not reading the original version of the book, but I'm actually reading a commentary on the Yoga Sutras done by Sri Ravi Shankar. I really love watching Sri Ravi Shankar's videos on YouTube. I have taken a lot of his courses from the Art of Living, about which I have made videos previously on YouTube. If you haven't checked them out yet, you can check out the videos here. I have taken the Art of Living, the Sky Breath workshop, as well as the Silent Meditation Retreat, and I have made videos about both of them. You can find the links below this video as well in the description. So, one of the very first thing the book talks about is the requirement or the need for discipline. Now, coming to think about it, when do you think you need discipline in your life? Do you need discipline when you are having fun? When you are thirsty or when you are hungry, do you need discipline to go drink water or have food? Or when you are having fun, do you need discipline to have fun? So, discipline is primarily required when we are doing things which are maybe not as exciting or fun to begin with. But we know that if we do it, if we stick to it regularly, then the fruits of it is going to be very beneficial and enjoyable. So, for instance, for a diabetic, they have to be disciplined to not consume sugar. I mean, even if they love sugar, but they still have to be disciplined enough to not consume it. Because even though it is painful in the short run to not have all the desserts that they love to eat, but having that discipline saves them from complications in the long run, which is going to be very unpleasant. So, in the long run, it brings them joy. In the long run, it brings them health. And of course, health and joy is intricately connected. You cannot be happy and joyful when your body is in pain or you are sick. It's hard to feel the joy when you are not feeling well health wise. So, similarly, when we are kids and our parents teach us to every morning wash our face and brush our teeth, initially we need that discipline because, as kids, we don't care about brushing our teeth. We don't care that others cannot sit next to us because our mouth is so smelly. And we also don't care so much about getting cavities in our teeth because we don't even know what cavities are and how painful they can be. So, we just do it because our parents make us do it. But after some time, first of all, it becomes a habit, and then it's not painful anymore to do it. Then we are just doing it out of habit. We don't even think about it. Every morning we wake up, and the first thing we do is go wash our face and brush our teeth. And we also start, understanding the benefits of it, that our mouth smells fresh, our breath is fresh. It is not embarrassing for us to be talking to people when they are standing close to us because, we have unfresh breath. And we also realize how painful it can be if you get cavities or something in your teeth. So we see the benefits, and it has already been practiced so many times that it's not painful anymore. In fact, it is enjoyable. Some might even say it is pretty enjoyable to brush their teeth 2 times a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. So things like this, which we know that in the long run they are going to bring us joy. The results or the fruit of that action is going to be very pleasurable. But in the short run, we we don't have the habit of doing that particular task. Maybe it is a very new task, we have never done it before. So it feels a little bit awkward, a little uncomfortable. So in the short run, we need to make ourselves do it. And that is when discipline is required. And another instance when you don't need discipline is when you are already centered in yourself. And I'm talking about self with a capital S, which means that you become the object of your perception. What happens most of the time is that our minds are busy in the world outside, and that makes our minds also very noisy. But when we are centered in ourself, then there is this state of inner calmness and peace. which automatically leads to blissfulness and joy. But if we are not centered in ourselves, and if we are not doing something which is fun, so the idea of fun and joy and happiness, even though people sometimes have a different maybe definition or idea about what fun is or what excitement is or what joy and happiness is, but for this particular video, I am using all these words interchangeably. Sometimes people think that fun means like, screaming up and down the stairs, jumping up and down the stairs, and just getting wasted and shouting and screaming at a party, just being a party animal. I'm not really talking about that kind of fun. For the purpose of this video, I am actually using the word fun, joy, excitement, happiness interchangeably, because when any of these emotions, when they come from your center, from within, not as a result of what is happening around you, not as a result of your reaction to the outside world, but when these emotions are arising from within you, then you are connected to yourself. And in that state of connection, you are just normally blissful. You are just normally full of joy, full of fun. You normally are excited and enthusiastic about life when you are in that state. So, do you think discipline is required in that state when you are in that state? I don't think so. So, discipline is not required when you are in that state of connection with yourself, with your higher self. And it is not required when you're doing something fun. An artist can paint for hours or sing for hours and dance for hours without even thinking about disciplining themselves. When you really have fun doing something, engaging in something that really brings you joy, it could be a form of art, it could be anything. You get in touch with your true self, your true nature. And during those times, you are in a state of flow and you don't need discipline during those times. So, when is discipline required then? The need for discipline, in my opinion, comes during times when you are not connected to your higher self. And when that happens, you are not centered and calm and peaceful anymore. And again, sometimes when I say the word centered, calm, and peaceful, people think that that is just a state of lethargy, just feeling lazy and, not doing anything. That is not the calmness or the centeredness or peacefulness that I'm talking about. When you are feeling peaceful, you could be feeling energetic at the same time. It's not about lethargy and feeling lazy. It's about feeling peaceful and energetic at the same time. It's that balanced state of being. So when we are not in that state, that is when the mind gets very active. The mind wags its tail, so to speak, and it gets very active or overstimulated by outside stimulations of the world. And that is when the need for discipline comes, to discipline and calm down the mind and bring it back to its center, to its true nature. And this brings me to the three different types of joy or three types of happiness as described in the Yoga Sutras. And that is Satvik, Tamasik, and Rajasik. Now, if you have heard any of my previous videos where I spoke a little bit about Ayurveda, you might have noticed that I spoke about these three types of Ayurvedic body types as well. They were Satvik, Rajasik, and Tamasik. And so, corresponding to these three states of being, there are three different, body types in Ayurveda. So, but here we are talking about happiness or joy. And Sattvic happiness or Sattvic joy is true or authentic joy. And that comes from being connected to yourself, to your higher self. And Sattvic joy might not be very pleasant to begin with, but you know that eventually the fruits of it is always pleasant. For instance, when you start meditating, how interesting is it for you to not, engage in any of the exciting news and gossip and things that is going on in the world? Not engage in any of that and just keep on bringing your focus on yourself. How exciting is that to begin with? Most people find meditation very boring when they first start. So, or even a yoga practice. Most people, for them it's very painful and challenging when they first start a yoga practice because your body is not that stiff, you're not that flexible. You see the teachers doing certain things that you cannot do. And then once you go to the class, the first few times you start having these new aches and pains in places, you didn't even know you had muscles in those places, but now they are aching. So, things like that. They are not very fun to begin with, but you know that when you continue with them on a daily basis, then the fruits of that is very pleasurable, it's very enjoyable. And that's why Sattvic happiness requires discipline. And Sattvic happiness is actually authentic, true happiness because it is the happiness that comes from connecting to yourself. It is the happiness that ties all the loose ends of yourself and brings them back to your center. It makes you the object of your perception instead of being so focused and distracted in the world around. The next is Tamasic happiness. And Tamasic happiness is happiness that seems like happiness from a distance, but from the very beginning is just misery. And when I read about it, the first thing that came to my mind is this phrase, all that glitters is not gold. That is what came to my mind the first thing when I read about this. So, tamasic happiness is all those things which look very sparkly and shiny from a distance, and you think they are going to make you happy. But from the very first time that you engage in them, is just misery from the beginning till end. And then the third type of happiness is Rajasic happiness. And Rajasic happiness is happiness that is very pleasurable and enjoyable to begin with, but it ends up in misery and suffering. And in fact, this kind of happiness is not really happiness at all. I mean, what kind of happiness begins with pleasure and ends in suffering is just an illusion. It's not happiness in reality. And Rajasic happiness is often the result of either a wrong discipline, following a wrong discipline, or having no discipline at all. Both of these lead to Rajasic happiness. And I guess it is kind of wrong to call it Rajasic happiness because it is not really happiness, but in the beginning it is pleasurable, it is joyful in the beginning. But eventually it leads to pain, suffering, and misery. So, as you can see, that the only true happiness is Sattvic happiness. And the word Sattvic in Sanskrit means pure. And this pure happiness comes from connecting with yourself. It is the authentic happiness that comes from within. Otherwise, the mind is constantly busy and distracted in the outside world. And some might say that, sleep could be a time when you connect with yourself, but that is not completely true because sleep cannot be compared with meditation. In fact, previously I had made a video about sleep and meditation, and I had compared and contrasted the two. If you haven't seen that video yet, you can check that video right here, sleep versus meditation. And even in sleep, your mind is not at complete rest. Sometimes you happen to wake up in the middle of the night and, maybe because you were having a bad dream. Sometimes you might wake up in the morning and you might be able to recall some of your dreams. Maybe you had a very restless night. But even on nights when you had actually a very good sleep, your sleep was still full of a lot of dreams. So your mind was not completely at rest, even in sleep. You were still dreaming and the mind was still active. A certain part of the mind was resting, but a certain part of the mind was still active. And old memories and impressions and ideas and things that we pick up from our surroundings, those impressions, they create, they just repeat themselves over and over again in our dreams. So even in your sleep and dream state, your mind is not completely at its center. It is not completely restful. And that's why meditation is so important. And that's why I believe that happiness or joy is really a discipline. Sometimes people say, oh, I'm just a very happy person. Sometimes people might just say that casually. But if you really study them, you will find that people who are just happy by nature, they have a certain attitude towards life. They have a certain mental discipline. And they even have a certain daily discipline. People are born happy, of course. All kids are happy. But by the time they grow into adults, so much has changed and so much has happened and so much societal programming has gone on that it is not possible for you to maintain that childish happiness without having any kind of discipline whatsoever. For most people, there might be exceptions, but I'm not talking about the exceptions here, I'm talking about the majority. And so, if you want sustainable, long term happiness, long term joy that is not dependent upon outside circumstances, I would highly recommend that you have some kind of a discipline. And discipline does not have to be something that is torturous. Maybe in the beginning it is a little bit uncomfortable, but the purpose of discipline is not to just torture yourself unnecessarily. Discipline always eventually leads to joy and happiness. If whatever you are doing in the name of discipline is not bringing any joy either to you or to the people around you, then that's not a discipline you need to be following. Maybe it is working very well for somebody else, but not for you. You need to find something that actually brings you happiness. Maybe initially it is a little uncomfortable because you have never done it before. Maybe because it is a little bit boring initially, like meditation, but something that eventually will bring you joy, and eventually it will bring joy even to others who are interacting with you. So, sometimes people they think that I have to be very disciplined about my personal training, going to a gym and really push myself hard. And when it comes to pushing yourself hard at physical workout, you have to be very mindful that, are you just doing it because you have some kind of ideas in your mind that you need to look a certain way, some kind of a magazine, image in your mind that I need to have six pack abs or I need to look this way just because society expects me to be this way? Because when you are pushing yourself beyond a certain limit, then it might not be a sattvic discipline anymore. Anything done in extremes is not sattvic. When you go from the extremes, sattvic is all about moderation. When you go into extremes, then it is not that balanced state. It is not about moderation anymore. So, there's this fine line between doing what is uncomfortable and then pushing yourself too hard. For instance, I know people who go to the gym and then they push themselves a little too hard. And what happens is they end up with an injury and now they cannot work out anymore. So, this kind of behavior, anything in extremes, is not sattvic. So, sattvic behavior is always balanced. It might be uncomfortable to begin with, but it always brings joy to you and to those around you. To you for sure. So, be mindful about what kind of spiritual practices, or even if they're not spiritual practices, maybe practices for your personal well being, for your health, for your wealth, whatever it might be. Be mindful about whether they fall into the sattvic category, the tamasic, or the rajasic category. For those of you who are interested in learning meditation, check out my meditation mastery program. The link is in the description below. I teach meditation programs online via webinars as well as through home study programs, which you can just take it at your own pace and you have lifetime access to them. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you liked it, then like it, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends and family, and leave your comment and let me know what you think about this video. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.